Thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Barry Erickson, and I'm Community Engagement Coordinator at Wheaton Public Library. Tonight, we are delighted to bring you Taking Great Outdoor Photos. The Central DuPage Camera Club will explain techniques using their own photos taken near and far as examples. We can enhance our enjoyment of nature and outdoor events with simple tips that can be used with cell phones or more sophisticated equipment. We will improve our understanding of how our cameras think, which settings to choose in different situations, and their impact on the image. The Central DuPage Camera Club has 20 to 30 members and welcomes amateur photographers at all levels, from beginners to advanced, as guests at their meetings. The group meets twice a month in the evening. Meetings alternate with technical instruction, presentations, and photo competitions. Members photograph a wide variety of subjects and are invited by the Wheaton Park District to photograph events, which are often then included in their publications. So with so much expertise and great information to provide for us, I'm anxious to turn the screen over to the Central DuPage Camera Club's president, Tom Snyder.
Yeah, very happy to be here to talk about our club and to talk about making great photographs. And one of the things we, as Mary mentioned, is we do have competitions, and that's one of the ways that you can really get a chance to get some feedback on your photos and see what others are presenting, and use that knowledge to improve your own photos. So the goals here are to help enhance your enjoyment of nature and outdoor events. I've included a number of slides that talk about simple tips and even cell phones. Most of our competitions are based on more sophisticated cameras and competitions. So cell phone photos have not been a big factor in our club, but I've included some information on that. And I've talked a little bit about how the camera thinks, and I have quite a number of photos that will show some really great photos and the settings that we use in different situations and the impacts on the image. And some of the photos are nearby and some are very far away. All the photos in this presentation were taken by the Central DuPage Camera Club members. We're all photo enthusiasts, not professionals. Some of the iPhone shots were not by our club members, but by my daughter-in-law, who's very good with cell phone photos, and she lives, actually, I think she sleeps with her cell phone all the time. These photos were all submitted for viewing and judging by outside judges in our local competition. I've shown in the settings the size, and our size is where we had to be limited to 1400 by 1050 to or less to submit to the competition, because they get so many photos. Large size files present a problem to storage and transmission of those. So what is a great outdoor photo? In many cases, it is a matter of taste. Since we do submit our photos for judging, it's amazing. We usually have 3 judges at each competition, and you can the judges give us a score, and you can see a variance between one judge and another. And even on a different night, you get a different score for a photo. We're allowed to resubmit them later if we felt like it didn't get a fair score. So it is really a matter of taste. Some people like landscape photos, birds, flowers, landscape, all kinds of different things. The trick with a great photo is just get a feel for what you're looking at. We've all stood in front of, just a fantastic view. And the trick is to capture that in your camera. And this is what some of the tips will cover. We'll look for an interesting feature. And of course, an important factor is the technique you use when you're taking these photos. Let's start off with so I'm going to show you a lot of the photos today. This is one from Larry Kamiziak. This is submitted as a competition. I really like this one. He used a basic Canon camera. You can see the settings. He had it set the shutter speed on 1/2000th, kind of a mid-range aperture, ISO 400. I believe, Larry, this was a photo you're taking on, is it Lake Michigan, or is this on up in Geneva?
That's on Geneva Lake.
Okay. Sorry about that. I couldn't get a chance to ask you about that Geneva Lake. Big boats up there in Geneva Lake. So how did you go about taking this photo?
I was a race officer for the day, running those races, and just happened to be in the right position.
Any planning or did you have to do anything in advance or you just?
Nope. Whenever I'm doing race committee duty, I always have my camera with me because you never know where you're going to be on the race course and have the opportunity to get some action shots like that.
Well, that's a good one. So this is a good example that you find a clear subject in that particular photo. Obviously, sailboats were the subject and the action that was taking place. You filled the frame completely. Light was very generous for him. Very interesting subject. We just heard a little bit of a story about it. Certainly, to me, had a wow factor. And we'll talk a little bit more about the basic rule. The photography industry in general has a number of rules that help to tell the photographer what would be important and what would be appealing to people who are going to be looking at the photos. So here's another one where the basic principles we just talked about are in play. It certainly fills the photo. There's a subject there. And Bob, do you have anything you'd like to say about how you went about taking this photo?
Yeah, well, the only thing I can say is that I did some advanced planning here by going on Google Earth and searching for these lighthouses and where they're at. Other than that, it's the magic is in Photoshop. You get out there and you get the weather that you get, and you have to put it together.
All right, thank you. So I mentioned the rules, and if we go through those, you can look at a number of different sources that talk about the rules, but basically, it's best to simplify what you can be standing there looking at a very complex scene, but in your photo that you're taking, you really want to simplify what you're concentrating on. The rule of thirds is not to have your very quickly is not to have your subject center like a bullseye in the middle. It's best to think of your scene and your camera as being divided up into thirds: the lower third, the middle third, and the top third, and likewise in the vertical dimension. And try to get your. What I understand is basically it's. I think we're all trained from the time we're little kids to read from left to right. Our eyes kind of work in that direction. So, and listen to judges over the years, I've heard them talk often about your eye starting on one side and looking to the other. The background, you want to have the background be cluttered as much as you can. You may have to change your perspective where you're standing to do that so that the subject stands out. We talked about filling the frame. Getting close, of course, is good. The more you get in of the subject, the better off you are. Colors, of course, some photos have contrasting colors and just fantastic colors that really stand out. The leading lines in this previous photo, you can see the leading line going out to the lighthouse, and of course he created depth. You had a real feel for how deep a photo that was. Here's another one, a leading line. This is it's not always necessary to follow the rules. Sometimes something just presents itself that makes more sense to you. But so that's a very interesting leading line right here in Wheaton, Lincoln Marsh, and it's it's got good color. It's got some contrast in the color. It follows a lot of the rules, and it's just a photo. When you look at it, you can see it. They use great technique, pick the right aperture to get a good picture. As far as the equipment, any camera can be used to get great photos. A lot of the photos in our club are done by not professional cameras, but kind of the high-end cameras like Canons and Nikons and something you might spend $800 or $1,000 for. Although not all. Point and shoot cameras take some pretty good photos too. Smartphones, well, it shows a couple of them a little bit that really picked up some great shots. I mentioned the digital single lens reflex cameras. Mirrorless cameras are something that's come on the scene in recent years, and I know very little about it. And I don't think we've seen a lot of that in our club so far. And there's a saying among a lot of photographers: the best camera is the one that you have with you, whether it's a smartphone or point and shoot, or if you're making a habit of carrying a phone with you, one of your regular, maybe your backup phone. If it's with you, sometimes a great scene presents itself, and you're there to take it. So here's this is a cell phone photo. This is from a vacation. Daughter-in-law traveled around Italy. We promised near and far. This is one of those far photos. She just snapped a photo with her iPhone. The size of this photo is 2.3 megabytes. Is a good size that you get out of a cell phone. You'll see some shots later on where it's not that large of a photo file because as a condition of our club, as I mentioned, we had to limit the size of the photos. But for digital photos, you're projecting on screen, looking at, they work fine. A photo like this has 2.3 megabytes would print much better. The ones that we use in our competition sometimes for when they're printed, the sizes are a bit of a handicap. As far as the cameras, whatever you're using, you need to know your camera, read and study the manual. The last thing you want to do is when you're out there getting ready, you take a photo, having trouble figuring out exactly what settings to use on it or how to do it. And that holds true for whether it's a cell phone or one of the more serious cameras. I shouldn't say serious cameras. Some of the new iPhones take some very serious pictures and have some real features, and you'll see some in a little bit here. Try the various features and settings. Get familiar with shooting modes. I mean, this all involves going out and taking some pictures, and trying different things with it. Just get familiar with the photos that you're interested in taking, and the different types of modes that are available in your camera. Your camera is a device. It's not creative. Some of the cameras do have some settings that claim to do a little thinking for you, but it's really not creative. You have to set the composition for the photo, which is really step number one to get a real good composition. Right here. What the camera sees is pretty really simple. I mean, we could talk hours on this in general for cameras, and I have seen presentations like that. But the camera actually sees the light, and the lens part of the camera focuses the light on the sensor, which gets captured on the sensor. On the DSL cameras, the lens have image processors. As you can see on cell phones, there's not much of a lens to it, so you don't get that kind of I guess, help in processing your image. Most of our photos, competition photos, people take pictures in RAW because RAW allows you, it captures all the data and allows for quite a bit of post-processing. And that's a big factor when you get into competition. Not necessarily real important for just snapshots that you're taking or trying to get a photo with any type of camera. The cameras in the JPEG mode, if you're not shooting in RAW mode, most of the DSL cameras have processors in them, so they actually do some processing, changing around the light, and it just makes some assumptions on what your photo you want. Talked about leading lines and colors. This is a photo that has a little bit of everything in it. Taken at a very good time when the sunset. Nikon. Bob, I think you're online here. Do you have anything you want to? I didn't know where this photo was taken. Or
right, we were going out west cruise by a train trip, and this was taken off the back car of the train, and it was really kind of a boring shot, but by cranking up the saturation and contrast, it made it more exciting. It's probably overdone a little bit, but there you are.
Well, it's really eye-catching. In putting this presentation together, I went through, we have, I'm sure it's thousands, I didn't look, but certainly thousands of photos, and some of it just grabbed read me, I picked, and this was one that just the colors and the leading lines. Now, as far as the rules, it kind of goes right down the center of the photo, but this one, it really works. So you don't always have to follow the rules. You can be creative. I mentioned the raw image. It does when we take a photo, the raw image might be 40 megabytes, 30, 40 megabytes. And as I mentioned before, when you're taking kit photos in JPEG, the camera makes some decisions on white balance, contrast, color, space, and others. The pixels, digital data are captured on the sensor. I've seen a number of different figures on this, but they claim the resolution can be as much as 576 megapixels for a scene. So when you look at something, obviously you have a wide angle view of it. Your eyes actually move. You probably don't pay much attention to it, but that's some scientific studies have been done to show that that's what your eye is looking at. Of course, your camera can only capture a portion of what your eye sees. The digital SLR cameras have, a lot of them have 20 to 50 megapixels capability on the sensor. As I mentioned earlier, this is good because these larger file sizes are better for making prints. Here's another iPhone photo. Very, very nice. It's a taken with an iPhone. This was in Galapagos National Park, in by my daughter-in-law. She gets around, and not much pre-planning. She tells me went into it. She just kind of pulled out her camera. She liked the scene. I was in front of her, and she took the picture. And it's a very nice picture. Now, if you wanted to print this, you probably could with the 3.4 megabytes and get a pretty decent photo. I mean, if you want to make an 8 by 10 out of it or something along those lines. The composition concepts, as I mentioned earlier, is you don't have to be real regimented about it. I mean, it really is a creative process. You can use some of the rules. It's a good idea to refresh yourself, and if you're out and you're standing in front of something that looks fantastic, to think about those rules and take some time to make a decisions on what the composition should be. It's very important to hold the camera steady, to avoid motion blurring and to getting the photo out of focus. You've set up a trip where you're out on a vacation and you want to take some serious photos. Tripod is an excellent thing to do, or if you're just practicing. I know when I'm out traveling on vacations, my wife is egging me to move on, so I don't often get a chance to set up a tripod or anything. You pretty much have to take the pictures as you can. Most of the cameras give you, all cameras are a little different. You can read the manual. There's different ways you can focus. You can focus on a specific spot. You can focus broad. You can go through the menu, figure out where you want to focus. And on cell phones, there's ways that you can actually. And I think, I know on my camera, I can touch a point on the screen, the LCD screen, and that's the point that the camera will focus on. Most of the cell phone cameras are kind of limited in the megapixels they have. They're set pretty much on the aperture. I understand there are some apps that can be used to change some of those things, but I'm not familiar with them. And I don't know if we have anybody in our club that can speak too well of that. We have had speakers come in from other clubs in the Chicago area to talk to us about iPhones, and this hasn't come up as much of a big topic. But the ultra wide and the iPhone 12, the aperture is f2.4. The sensor size is kind of small by comparison to SLR cameras, but they do take a pretty decent picture, as we've seen. The SLR cameras capture a lot more megapixels onto the larger sensors, and they're better for getting details out of your photos. Cell phones, some of the concepts are the same, but for holding the cell phone as close still as possible. You can set it up someplace. You can use a timer on the cell phone if you'd like to to set it on something, compose the scene, and then hit the timer. That way your hand motion to snap the picture doesn't blur the picture. If you're unable to do that, use two hands with your elbows close to your body. You can set the exposure and focus on a cell phone, iPhone, I know for sure. You can touch the screen until a yellow box appears. The yellow box has on the side of it a little, um, I guess, a scale that you can move up and down to set the exposure. You can look and see if it's light enough or you want to darken it up. And then you move your finger on that scale up and down to set the exposure, and then you touch the screen where you want to focus. As far as snapping the photo, this on the newer phones, there's a couple ways you can do it. There's a little button you can use, or you can even use the. I understand you can use the volume button on the side of the phone. So there's a pretty nice photo taken by my daughter-in-law. This is just not much planning to it. This is what the students all have their gowns on. This is what they look like when they don't have they take it off after the picture. So this is kind of an interesting picture for me, my granddaughter. Here's one that's fascinating, and hopefully that Art Segula is here. This was a photo they entered into our competition and won an award. And our camera club takes our award winners and we send them off to the Chicago area camera clubs competitions and won honors at the Chicago area wide competition. And this was a cell phone picture. Let me see, is Art here? Told me to be here. Not here. So he told me he used an app called Focus. I'm not familiar with it, but it helped him to make this photo and the detail and the subject and all the things that you look for in a photo there. Not going far away over to Morton Arboretum. So on the SLR and mirror cameras, one of the things that's most important to our photographers is the settings. The AV stands for aperture value. You can set the aperture priority for the camera. The time value is the shutter speed. If you're taking something like baseball or action photos, you set the shutter priority, and you have manual too, where you can select all of the above: ISO, shutter speed, aperture. Most of the photographers I know, the advice they've given is that if you're out taking photos, the best thing to do is, obviously, if you're taking landscape photo, you have an idea generally what pictures you're taking. You set the aperture for depth of field that you want, and then the other things are set by the camera. And conversely, if you're doing something where there's action going on, you want to set the shutter speed for high speed so you can catch the action. A large aperture results in a shallow depth of field, and a small aperture gives you a deep depth of field. So if there's a little snipper off the right hand side here with a real deep field, you probably wouldn't up towards the high end. Usually the cameras and the lenses do best when you're in the mid range somewhere, so you want to be up a little on the higher side. I mean, you can experiment with your camera, but the settings in general is large aperture for something where you just want a shallow depth of field, and that maybe you may want to do that just to cut out the background, so it's you decluttered the background. And Ansel Adams landscapes, he took photos, and the depth of the was incredible. Now a lot of his photos were before digital cameras, but still it's the same type of equipment. You had an aperture that opened and closed to take your picture. Larry Church, is one of your pictures. I see you're here. Can you tell us a little bit about something, how you went about taking this photo, where it was?
This was in Michigan, in the Traverse City area. The lake is just south of some sand dunes. My wife was driving and she saw the lake and pulled in without me even noticing what she was doing. So I actually owe some credit to the driver who pulled over. But as you can see, the water was very still. I took a a very small aperture to get maximum depth of field, and I happen to have a nice wide angle lens. Try to use some of the principles that you talked about earlier. The Z6 is a mirrorless camera, and I love it. It's half the size of the comparable reflex cameras.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Yeah, that's a very striking photo. I've there's a lot of different thoughts out there, but I kind of distill this down in general the guidelines that I've seen, even though I can't spell very good. The landscape photos, generally you want to use f11 to 22, sports 2.8 to 6.3, lifetime photos, you know, outdoor portrait photos. Again, you're focusing on a person, and I think a lot of the people, I think like Ron Simsek and Larry, some of the guys have a favorite setting they use when they're outdoors. So they put it on. The settings can vary by your camera lens, and I've looked at reviews for my camera lens and the suggestions on where they take the clearest photos. And typically, what I do is I don't just take one shot and limited. I usually take some change. I change some of the settings to see how it comes out. So it's always a good, you know, it's not like the old days where you're taking photos and you had to develop them. These you could take a dozen photos or easily with some slightly different settings, look at them later and figure out what's the best. So Larry and Ron, do you have anything you want to add on apertures? I noticed for one of the key ingredients to get some really sharp outdoor photos.
Tom, this is Ron. I normally, if I'm doing landscape, I normally shoot at f16, ISO 100, always use a tripod, and then whatever, speed I need to use those two other settings, which usually is slow speed, but that's what I normally use.
Well, you've got some great photos here, so it sounds like good advice to me. I'll move on here. I don't think Gerald is with us here, but this is a nice photo. I think he won an honorable mention or award for this. This was in Glen Ellen. This one you can see body composition of this is very nice. He got some reflection of the scene in the water, very clear. I would suspect to use a tripod on this. His F number was a little different than what Ron might recommend, but it's can't argue with the results. A very nice photo. I think it's some great photos just present themselves to you, but generally it's a good idea to prepare in advance. Some of the best photographers do some planning. Set a location or know where they want to go to take photos. Maybe on a vacation. Maybe you take a vacation to a location where they have scenes that you'd like to take, and you take the time to take the photos. Maybe in the morning or the late in the day. The golden hour for outdoor photography is one of those rules where the light is just very good for you. If you're planning ahead, you prepare in advance to have the equipment with you. Tripod. We haven't gone into filters here, but there are filters that can help enhance your photos and sometimes you need to take things to stay warm or to keep your hands warm. And the patience is a big thing too. Sometimes you just have to wait around for the right thing to happen or to move around to different spots in the scene, different perspective. I've seen some presentations where the photographers get down on the ground for some shots and just go to a lot of trouble. I've seen some presentations where the photographers actually have used apps to figure out where the sun will be at a certain time, or if they're trying to catch a certain condition. They were professionals, so those things do make a difference if you really want to work that hard to get those great photos. This is another iPhone photo. More or less, again, just a snapshot. Very, very nice. Nice picture out of iPhone. Depending what settings you use, typically what I do is we in our club we take photos for the Wheaton Park District. We use their facilities twice a month, and we have an arrangement with them where they tell us what they'd like us to photograph. We take the photos, and then they use some of them occasionally in their brochures. So if you're going out to take kite flying or something where there's a lot of action, before I ever step out to take any pictures, I figure out what settings I want to use, the white balance, the aperture, shutter speed. If it's you're taking pictures, if you're changing, you're moving, trying to take some pictures of people moving. My camera, you can select the white balance pretty easily before you ever get started. The SLR cameras, I know in mine, there's most of them, you can select a scene. There's you go to auto mode and you can pick they give you a number of different things, landscapes, sports, things like that. You can pick a scene setting. It's not, I've on occasion used auto mode just to see what the camera recommends and put some thought into it to see if it's right, and then change the aperture or to shutter speed. And again, maybe take a couple different settings with and taking the pictures. And then whenever you're looking to take the photos, just think about the composition rules. Here's a photo taken by Dave Maziak on at Wrigley Field. Obviously, he had a very fast shutter speed. The ISO 400. Again, it was a. This is probably something he didn't get a chance to set up a tripod or anything. So this is an impromptu type picture, but a very nice one. And this is the type of thing you might see in the newspaper. We one of our meetings, we actually had the photo editor from the Daily Herald come to our meeting. It was in the past year, though, it was a virtual meeting, and he spent an hour and a half explaining to us what they look for in photojournalism. And they have contests, weekly contests, where if you take some pictures that you think are newsworthy, you can send them into the contest, or you can actually send photos in at any time to them, and they use them in the newspaper. It's very interesting to hear him talk to us for about an hour and a half on what they look for. Here's a photo of the California coast. This one is very, very striking. Colors and the composition of it by John Emmel. It's a Pacific Coast Highway. I'm sure I didn't get a chance to talk to John about this picture, but I'm sure this was something he spent some time to set up and use a tripod. I generally said some tips is to practice. The more you get to know your camera, the better photos you'll be taking. Get feedback on your photos. Like I mentioned, we have monthly competitions. We also have critique nights where we give feedback. There are also websites out there where you can put your photos there to get critiqued. And of course, you might want to spend some time to go back through some of your photos and look at what you've done and self-critique them for improvement. Maybe after you've heard one of the presentations at our meetings, or after having a chance to talk to somebody in our club, see what you could have done to make it better. The more you practice, the better the pictures will be. And to seek out education. There's a lot of things online. As I mentioned, we have the seminar. In the past year, it was tough for everybody, but in one way, we were doing our meetings virtual, and so were the other clubs. So we had a number of cases where they got invited us to their presentations. So we actually had even more than one opportunity a month to get some real positive feedback from people that were photo enthusiasts just like us. So remember, this is Bob. This is your photo. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about what your thinking was on this photo.
Oh, sure. Well, this is interesting in that this is an HDR photo. Actually, it's a bracketed photo, 2 stops up, 2 stops down, and I put together in Photoshop. What caught my eye was the leading line of the river and leading back to the wooded area and then the sky.
Yeah, very nice photo. Thanks.
So it was also shot off a tripod. You can't do very good HDR without using a tripod.
Okay, good tip. This is one of my photos. I was on a trip. We promised near and far. This is pretty far. We had driven this on the South Island in New Zealand. My wife and I were driven across the island from one side to the other, and we stopped to take a little break. And I didn't have a tripod. I just took this picture, and I mean, it's one of those things. You get out of the car, you look at the scene, you say, I just have to take this photo. In this case, I don't remember exactly if I took. I usually take a picture auto, and then I make some changes to the settings. And this was something that just turned out really well. Ron, this is your photo. I think we know where this was at. It was on Earth, looking up at the moon. You have anything you want to add to this? Looks like a tricky photo to take.
Yeah, this was just shot locally, I think off a golf course. I think this was one of those days when they noted there was going to be a supermoon, and we got a clear shot of it from a golf course locally. Like the setting said, it's 500 millimeter lens. And the critical thing about shooting the moon is it doesn't appear to you, but the moon is constantly moving. So if you shoot at too slow a speed, it'll be blurred.
Yeah, really, very good photo. So this is Mark, one of our members, has a nice picture of photos. We have in our competitions, we have 3 different categories. You can take color photos, you can take black and white, and we have another category for prints. We haven't been able to do that in the past year and a half because we weren't meeting in person. But this is a very nice black and white photo. I didn't get a chance to catch up with him to find out where he took this, but I think he does a lot of his photos locally in and around Illinois. So I think this is probably one of our local coyotes. This is a picture I took on our vacation. My wife is not like Larry's Church's wife. Whenever we're out traveling, she's always hustling me along, but we just happened to be walking across. She wanted to have me take a bunch of pictures of churches, and as we're walking back to the bus, this scene was really interesting to me. About the time I was getting set up to take the picture, she's saying, "Let's go, let's go." The bicycle came along, and we had a little interest in the photo, and the kid turned out pretty well for me. Bob Briggs, this is your photo. Again, in black and white.
It's the art museum in Milwaukee, and it's kind of a view you'd never see. As it turns out, the boat was added to it as additional interest. But I like black and white.
Nice photo. Larry Kamiziak's taken a number of great photos over the years, and this is one that he singled out as one that he found one of his favorites. It was interesting. Larry, I know this comes with the story.
This is one of those ones where the only planning I had was the camera was in the car. I happened to be in Lake Delavan. I'm a race officer, so I was going to run some races that morning. But instead of, when it got to the lake, and instead of a nice sunny breezy day, it was dead calm, dense fog. And this is about 7:30 in the morning in June, and lonely fisherman out there. And I thought it was a great silhouette shot.
Again, what's one of these things, you just have to be in the right place at the right time, I guess, and know what you're doing.
Yep, just sat there, I had a tripod in my car, so I put the tripod out, set it up. He wasn't going anywhere, so I had plenty of time to set up and take the shot.
Great. All right, thanks. This one can make you a little dizzy when you look at it, but this is a great photo. It's got leading lines and it's got all kinds of color and it's very clear depth of focus. Bob, this is one I know it's one of your favorites.
Yeah, well, this was taken a couple years ago, and the road is actually like that. I actually stepped it back and got an extra, probably 2 turns in there just to make it even more ridiculous. But the road is exactly like that. A lot of color.
Yeah, very nice. Here's one I took on a vacation, and we're just walking down. I had my cameras off taking pictures, trying to get a good picture of the Matterhorn. Coming back down from that, and this was this particular city up in the Alps doesn't allow cars, and they have this this hotel has this horse and carriage that they take people back and forth from the train station. So I just took this picture, and I kind of liked it. I won an honors with this in our club. There's a lot of times we have a whole bunch of bird pictures. I couldn't find very many quickly when I was putting this thing together. But Ron, this is your photo. Very interesting.
Yeah, again, this is shot locally. I think this was at the Lincoln Marsh, and I think I spent quite a bit of time there. This was in the fall several years ago, but there were a number of birds that I had noticed were feeding there and there for several days in a row. So it wasn't just a one-time thing. I think I went there several times to get this before I got a shot like this.
They almost posed for you. Yeah, good reflections in it and everything. And there's one of the other rules I hear people mention all the time is that photos have three objects in it. It kind of appeals to people, and so it's kind of rule 3s, I guess. And this captures that too. So, picture in the Netherlands. This was a stop on a river cruise, and my wife got tired of looking at windmills. She went back to the bus, so I took a little time to try to get a good picture of the windmill. I didn't have a tripod with me, so this was just taken. So I think that's probably the end of the pictures that I'm showing, but they just go through post-processing, that you probably heard is valuable in creating great photos. But a lot of photographers use Photoshop or something akin to that on their photos to clean out some things that don't belong there and to help with the exposure. And it's amazing the types of things that you can do with Photoshop and with Lightroom. You can also use Photoshop on camera photos. Actually, the iPhone photos that from my daughter-in-law, I did some exposure changes on that. iPhone Snapseed is a free app that can be installed on your phone to plus the cell phone photos. I've done that in a few photos. It's very easy to do. You can do it right where there and take more pictures if you don't like the looks of it. And just biggest tip is get outdoors and take as many photos as you can, and practice makes perfect. So you're welcome to join us. You can join our club. I joined about 5 years ago. I wasn't taking very great photos and just going to the meetings and listening to the presentations and seeing the photos that people were presenting and hearing the comments that the judges made on the photos went a long ways to help me take better photos. Learning topics, as I mentioned, we've had one guy come in, spend a whole night on lighting. We had the general manager of the ProCam come over and give a presentation to us, well, again, virtually, on how to take great photos. Our competitions and the critiques are, we have 2 different levels. We have a A level and a B level. some of the great photos you've seen, the best photos are the guys that are in the A level, and then the B level folks are like me and others. And if you get better and your photos get better, then you moved up to the A level. So it keeps you on edge to do more and better all the time. So we contact us. We do have a website, the Central DuPage Camera Club. On the website is a link to our Flickr site, and on the Flickr site is hundreds. I don't even know how many. There's a limit how many you can put on there, but it's many photos of our best. All the photos on our Flickr site are photos that have won awards in our monthly competitions. So if you're interested in seeing more photos, that's certainly a thing to do. And I just want to thank everybody that has allowed permission to use your photos. There was a number of snippets, these things over here on the right-hand side that I just put it in there to add a little pizzazz to each one of the slides that had some text on it. But not all of them did I have time to get them in here to give you all the details on it. But these are the people that whose photos we use in this presentation. So I'd like to thank you all and give everyone to these folks. You give them a thumbs up. And with that, Barry, I think I'm done.
Okay, thank you so much. So just a reminder at this point, I'm sure there's a lot of questions out there. If you want to go ahead and open up your Q&A, and you can type your questions in there. I will read those aloud, and the members of the Camera Club will answer them. So our first question is, when you're going for a black and white shot, do you initially shoot the image in black and white, or do you shoot it in color and then convert?
Well, I'll take that if nobody else does though. I shoot it in color, and the conversion in Photoshop gives you a lot more options as you convert to mono. You can have the reds come up darker or lighter. You can get all kinds of different effects going into the mono. So I always shoot in color.
Okay, great, thank you. And kind of along those lines, a couple of times during the presentation, white balance was mentioned. And so I'm wondering if you could explain that a little bit better or more thoroughly, what white balance means and why you would set that.
Well, I give you a simple answer, I guess. And if you look on your camera, if you go to there's on my camera, there's a little button that you click for the white balance, and it gives you some choices. And then what it does is it's a sunny day, you pick the setting for sunny days. If it's a cloudy day, you pick that setting. And what that does is the camera, in fact, has a processor that takes into account those conditions and picks the right technical setting for the balance. I mean, the lighting has a number of things associated with how technical people can get technically, but it just sets the white right for that particular type of area. I don't know if any of you guys probably add a little more to that if you'd like to, but
anything else about white balance?
I could add that when you shoot in RAW, the camera captures the entire digital data, and the white balance assumptions are not in that RAW file. When you process it, you then can select the white balance in Photoshop or whatever you're using to process the RAW file, and it allows you to adjust the white balance for changes in the sunlight from afternoon. It's going to be much more warm than it will be, or more I guess it'll be more cool in the afternoon than it is in the evening, or around sunset. You get the more orangey color. But if you don't want that orangey color and you're trying to take a picture or a portrait, and your camera sees that orange, with a RAW file, you can very easily take it out and turn it into a normal looking portrait of a person with normal skin tones.
Okay. Great, thank you. Sort of maybe as we're talking about portraits and taking pictures of people, wondering if you have any advice about groups. You know, we're so excited to be able to be getting together, and if you're gathering for a picnic or such outdoors, any particular advice about shooting pictures of groups of people?
I don't do that very often myself, so I don't know. We don't. I think the one of the keys of taking outdoor photos and you have people in general into it is the lighting and where the lighting is coming from, to make sure you don't have shadows on the faces. So you can and the other thing would be the aperture. You probably don't want taking a picture of a group. I mean, you can make a choice that you want to have the background sharp, or probably not. You probably want to set an aperture and a focus on the people and let the background be somewhat incidental to what you're doing. You can also use a fill flash. The cameras have the opportunity to use a flash, even though it's sun shining. You have to do that to manual setting to have the flash, but then that takes the shadows out. And you just need to be careful that it's not too bright. Um, what I've seen is you probably need to take more than one, certainly need to take more than one photo. Take photos and maybe a step or two to the right or a step or two to the left. Take some more people. I've seen some professionals doing group photos on trips I've been on, and they drive everybody crazy. Take off your sunglasses, take off your hats. But those types of things are what you want to look for if you're taking group photos outdoors.
Okay, great advice. Thank you. One other thing is microphotography. Like if you're trying to capture that insect or flower or a special plant, any particular advice for that kind of microphotography where you're really focusing in? I think a small aperture. Is that correct? Anything else?
Well, Bob Briggs is a guy that takes some fantastic photos of macro photos of flowers. So Bob, you're probably best to answer that.
I was just going to suggest Larry, but
Larry, okay.
I would say, first of all, you almost have to have a lens for a purpose, or extension tubes or something so you can get closer. Some people are even shooting an extension tube on maybe a 300 millimeter lens, so they can be working 6 feet away and fill an entire frame with a small insect, which is kind of nice. Another thing, you're going to have very short depth of field, so you're probably going to be shooting at a very small f-stop. It gets more in focus. And of course, you can always take multiple shots at different depths to combine them into a single shot too, for focus. Larry, you got anything to add?
Larry's taking some really interesting photos of water drops.
Yeah.
He spent a fair amount of time doing some really interesting photos and won some honors with his water drop photos.
Yeah, some of that's all in the timing and using a flash. But to add to Bob's comments about close-up photography, you definitely have to seriously look at some good equipment, and any shots I've ever taken that's a good close-up of bugs or animals, you have to do focus stacking in order to get the depth of field, because your depth of field is just so narrow to get a really good shot.
Okay.
One of the presentations, I think it was Mays Lake Camera Club, one of the Chicago area clubs, spent an entire night, had a guy presenting, and he was from someplace out, Oklahoma, Nebraska, something like that. On his whole presentation was on 1 square meter of prairie. So he spent a year, I think, going out there and taking pictures of insects and all kinds of interesting things. And he talked about that, the equipment he used and how he took the photos, and for over an hour. So some of these topics you can get very deep and very specialized.
Absolutely. All right, well, I don't see any other questions in the queue. So at this point, we certainly want to thank you, Tom, and the rest of you members of the Central DuPage Camera Club for providing this presentation. I know it takes a lot of work and effort to put these things together. So thanks for all of that great information. Again, this program has been recorded and it will be uploaded to the library's YouTube page within a week. I will be sending out some resource links in an email following tonight's presentation. If you are watching the recording of this program at a later date, you may request those links by emailing me at ce@wheatonlibrary.org. That's CE for community engagement at wheatonlibrary.org. And I'd be happy to send those links out to you, including the link to the camera club and all of those things that Tom mentioned on our website. So at that point, certainly thank you again to the camera club and to everyone who has attended tonight. Have a great evening and I hope to see you again soon.